Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with the mighty Jingles, and today we're going to be taking a look at an upcoming premium Polish destroyer, the first Polish warship to be introduced into World of Warships, and it shouldn't come as a real surprise. This thing's been leaked before, it's been hanging around in the game files since forever, but I managed to get my hands on it, and we're going to have a look and see what it's like. I am, of course, stalling here because I don't want to have to try to pronounce the name of this thing. It's Poland, what's up with your language? Okay, I'll have a go, but don't laugh, okay? This is the Błyskawica. Sounds about right. It's a British-designed Polish destroyer. The Błyskawica, and I'm getting very confident saying that now, aren't I? It's probably wrong. The Błyskawica and her sister ship, the Grom, were two Grom-Class destroyers designed by J. Samuel White in 1934 for the Polish Navy. At the time these ships were built, they had the best anti-aircraft armament, which was highly unusual. Remember, this was pre-World War II. The best anti-aircraft armament of any destroyer afloat. They were some of the biggest, heaviest, fastest and most powerful destroyers in the world. They were very, very good ships. They saw extensive service throughout World War II, and the Błyskawica here survived the war and exists today as a museum ship in the dockyard of Gdynia in Poland, where you can go and visit it. In fact, they even had a World of Warships press event on board this ship to celebrate the launch of World of Warships in Europe. So, before we start poring over the numbers and analysing the stats and having a look at some of the replays, you guys know how this works by now. We're going to talk about the history of this fantastic Tier 7 Polish destroyer. Błyskawica was the second of two Grom-Class destroyers to be built by J. Samuel White of Cowes in the Isle of Wight for the Polish Navy. The Grom, which means thunder, and Błyskawica, which means lightning, were the only two ships of the class to be built, and were the fastest and most heavily armed destroyers in the world at the time. Błyskawica's keel was laid down in September 1935, and she was launched on October the 1st, 1936 by Mrs. Cecilia Raksini, by the wife of Poland's ambassador to Britain. I'm sorry, Poland, I just cannot get my mouth around your names. She was officially commissioned on November the 25th, 1937, after which she and the Grom both set sail for Gdynia, which is Poland's Baltic seaport, close to Gdansk. In March 1939, before war with Germany was even declared, Poland and Britain had devised the Peking Plan, which meant that ships of Poland's Baltic fleet would leave their base when war was imminent and make their way to Britain. So on the 30th of August that year, Grom, Błyskawica and Bertha, which means Tempest, set sail from Gdynia, reaching the port of Leith in Scotland 2 days later on the 1st of September, the day Germany invaded Poland. The three ships formed the backbone of the Polish destroyer squadron attached to the Royal Navy's home fleet. Błyskawica was given the pennant number H34, and she was soon in action, detecting and attacking a German U-boat in British waters on the 7th of September. In November 1939, the Anglo-Polish Naval Agreement was signed. In this, the Polish naval detachment, whilst being under the operational control of the British Admiralty, was to retain Polish crews and be commanded by Polish officers. The ships were subject to Polish regulations, and uniforms and rank distinctions were all Polish. The vessels were regarded as sovereign Polish territory. Błyskawica took part in many famous wartime operations. In spring 1940, along with the Grom, she entered the Norwegian campaign, shelling German positions and targeting Luftwaffe aircraft. The two destroyers had entered Westfjord off Narvik on the 21st of April, where OOP Grom was bombed by a German aircraft on the 4th of May and sank with the loss of 59 men. Her torpedo room had received a direct hit. On the 10th of May, Błyskawica left Norwegian waters, and on the 28th of May the ship was ordered to begin providing anti-aircraft cover on Evacuation Route Yankee, part of Operation Dynamo, which had been devised to effect the evacuation of the British Expeditionary Force from Dunkirk. During the operation, she towed damaged British destroyer Greyhound, carrying 1,000 Allied troops back to Dover. She also escorted the French destroyer Cyclone, which had been badly damaged in a torpedo attack, again into Dover. On the 1st of June, she withdrew for repairs. After Dunkirk, Błyskawica was on convoy duties in the Atlantic and Mediterranean for 2 years. In October 1942, she escorted RMS Queen Mary to Scotland after the liner, in use as a troopship, rammed and sank her escort, HMS Curaçao, while trying to avoid a submarine attack. Earlier in 1942, she'd been at JS White Shipyard on the Isle of Wight, where she'd been built for an emergency refit when the shipyards were attacked by the Luftwaffe. The Błyskawica's commanding officer, Commander Wojciech Franki, had ordered that the ship maintain her ammunition supplies even though she was in refit, and thanks to this, just before 11 p.m. on the 4th of May, the Błyskawica was able to defend the town of Cows from a concerted attack by waves upon waves of German fighter bombers. The Luftwaffe used a variety of weapons, parachute flares, high explosive bombs and incendiary bombs, augmented by their machine guns and cannon, and Błyskawica quickly became a floating anti-aircraft base in the defence of the town. Her crew lit smoke canisters in an attempt to obscure the town from its attackers, and she was able to use her anti-aircraft weapons to force the Luftwaffe to fly higher, affecting the accuracy of the bombing. Further south along the river, 3 French naval units stationed at Marvin's Yard also opened up with smaller caliber anti-aircraft weapons. These first attacks lasted 2 hours, with the Błyskawica's guns firing continuously throughout. The ship's guns became so hot, the crew had to use fire hoses to cool the barrels down so that the ammunition didn't explode in the breaches. The actions of the captain and crew were effective. Many of the bombers failed to reach their targets. As soon as the bombers left, search and rescue attempts began in the badly damaged areas of the town. At about 2 a.m, another wave of German aircraft reached the area, subjecting the town to another 2 hours of bombardment, this time including armour-piercing bombs. At dawn on the 5th of May, emergency services from all over the island raced in to help, and Błyskawica's crew joined them, acting as firemen and diggers in support of the local teams. 200 tons of explosives had been dropped on the shipyards in the town that night, resulting in a lot of damage. Over 70 people had lost their lives and many more were injured. But it's been widely acknowledged on the Isle of Wight that if not for the quick thinking of Captain Franki and the bravery of the crew of the Błyskawica, then the damage and the casualties would have been far, far higher. During the course of World War II, Błyskawica sailed 148,000 miles, escorted 83 convoys, carried out 108 operational patrols, had a hand in sinking 2 enemy warships, damaged 3 submarines and shot down at least 4 aircraft. She lost 5 crew members and sustained 48 casualties. In July 1947, she returned to a Poland which was now under a communist government, and she was converted for anti-aircraft duties. In 1976, she became a museum ship, part of the Navy Museum at Gdynia. So, let's take a look at the numbers. This is a destroyer. It doesn't have any armour. 16mm at the most. This is why you don't fire armour piercing at these things. Armour piercing won't even notice 16mm of armour. It'll go straight in, straight out the other side, and it'll do nothing. This is why you fire high explosive at destroyers. Hit points, 15,500. It doesn't seem like a lot, but you've got to put that into perspective. Let's have a look at a Tier 10 destroyer. The Gearing, American Tier 10 destroyer. That only has 19,400, so yeah, the Błyskawica doesn't have an awful lot of health, but it's got no more or no less health than any other Tier 7 destroyer, which isn't a lot less than a Tier 10 destroyer. The guns are very good, and it's got 7 of them. 3 at the front, 2 in one turret, 1 in another turret, and it's got another 4 at the back in 2 turrets. They're 120mm guns. They have a 12km firing range, which is very good. The turret rotation speed, it's all right. It takes 14.4 seconds to rotate these turrets 180 degrees, which is way faster than anything Japanese. It's faster generally than the Soviet destroyers. It's just not quite as fast as the Americans. The Americans are the real knife-fighting gunboats, but the Błyskawica is not far behind, and if you're not far behind the Americans in gun performance, you're doing all right. Torpedoes are okay. They have an 8km range. They're a little slow though. They only travel through the water at a speed of 57 knots, but they do a good amount of damage, 14,400 per hit, and they take 1 minute and 10 seconds to reload. The anti-aircraft defence. A lot was made about the anti-aircraft defence of the Grom-Class destroyers when they were first designed. And when they were first designed, they did have the best anti-aircraft armament of any destroyer in the world. But they were designed in the mid-1930s, and things had moved on a little bit by World War II. Nevertheless, the anti-aircraft armament is okay, but your best bet on one of these things is to still try to avoid aircraft rather than acting as a fleet escort. You don't want to get spotted by dive bombers when you're driving one of these things. What's interesting, though, is the anti-aircraft guns that it does have. It's got 4 double-barreled 13.2mm Hotchkiss machine guns, okay? And remember, this thing was built in 1935. It's also got 2 double-barreled 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns, and that's very unusual on a destroyer. These guns were the mainstay of the anti-aircraft defence of both the Royal Navy and the US Navy all throughout World War II. In fact, they were in such high demand they never had enough of them. And so seeing a destroyer designed in the mid-1930s carrying 4 of these guns is very unusual. On to manoeuvrability. It's very fast. Top speed of 39 knots. If you fly the Sierra Mike signal flag, which looks like... where is it? Well, that increases the maximum speed by 5%. And with that flag flying, this little ship will approach 41 knots in speed. It's a very, very fast ship in a straight line. The rudder shift time of 5.8 seconds is perfectly adequate. It's not especially good, but it's definitely not bad. The only real fly in the ointment with the Błyskawica is the concealment rating. Its surface detectability range is 7.7 kilometers. Now that's not terrible, but, well, you have to take it into context with some of the other numbers. 7.7 kilometer surface detection range. The torpedoes, 8 kilometer range. So that means, while it's certainly not impossible to fire the torpedoes from this thing at a target and remain hidden, it's going to be very, very difficult because you only have a 300 meter margin of error before you wander inside detection range. Of course, flying signal flags like Sierra Mike can help with that, but it still doesn't give you an awful lot of room. Unfortunately, well, here's the thing, and this is by no means a problem that is specific or unique to this ship. A lot of destroyers suffer from this issue. That surface detectability range of 7.7 kilometers, but a main battery firing range of 12 kilometers. You think, well, that's all right, you just stay beyond about 8 kilometers range and blaze away with the guns. Well, yeah, but it doesn't actually work like that. The thing is, when you fire the gun on any ship in World of Warships, it increases the range at which you will be detected. Now, the numbers vary from ship to ship, but generally speaking, destroyers increase the range at which they'll be detected on the surface by 4 kilometers when they fire their guns. Now, if you add 4 kilometers to 7.7 kilometers, you get 11.7 kilometers, and the maximum range of the guns is 12 kilometers. So even when you're firing the guns in this thing, you only have that very narrow 300 meter margin of error in order to be able to fire the guns and not be spotted. And that is not easy. Generally speaking, anytime you fire the guns on this ship, and anytime you launch the torpedoes on this ship, you're going to be detected and you're going to come under attack. But again, that is not a problem that is unique to the Błyskawica. This is what life is like when you're sailing destroyers in World of Warships. It's a life of glamour and adventure on the high seas, and if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have become a destroyer captain. With that in mind, I do definitely recommend that when you're sailing this ship, you never leave your port without some of this. Type 1 camo. It does look very nice, doesn't it? This reduces your detectability by 3%, and I can name at least one occasion when having this camouflage on this ship saved my arse. I would have, well, possibly been sunk, but definitely been spotted and definitely been attacked if it wasn't for having this camouflage pattern. So, what are we waiting for? Let's take the old girl out and see how she plays. So, first things first, how does the Błyskawica handle itself in a duel with another destroyer? Well, not bad actually. In fact, pretty damn good. For a start, it's got 7 guns. And while the turrets don't turn as fast as an American destroyer, they're not slow. They're certainly faster than the Japanese destroyers, and they're even faster than premium tier 5 Soviet destroyers like the Grom-Class. The Grom-Class definitely, while it does have very, very good guns, has to keep enemy destroyers at arm's length because the turrets rotate so slowly. You definitely don't have that issue in the Błyskawica. In fact, it's second only to American destroyers. Typically, I'm talking about ships like the Sims, the Mayhan, Nicholas, in terms of how effective they are at dealing with destroyers of other nations. The only real problem that this ship has when it comes to dealing with enemy destroyers is that 7.7 kilometer surface detection range. Time after time after time, the first time I know there's an enemy destroyer anywhere near me is when I cannot see anything within range, but I have been detected. And there he is. Didn't see him until he started firing his guns. Expect this to happen a lot when you're in this ship. And it's that 7.7 kilometer surface detection range that is really going to be your biggest problem in this ship, and something you're going to have to learn to deal with. as this tail chase of a heavily damaged enemy Pensacola Tier 7 cruiser is going to illustrate. First of all, full credit has to go to this Pensacola captain, because he definitely knew what he was doing. He knew exactly how to vary his course and speed. He timed the reload of his guns perfectly, so that he only turned when the guns were ready to fire, and then immediately started adjusting course and speed again, and made it as hard as he possibly could for me to land a shot on him. He was very, very good. At the same time, he is a Pensacola. He's the first American cruiser to get the 203mm big guns, and I really don't want to get hit by one of those 203mm high explosive shells, so I'm going to have to start doing more of the same. Started suffering from a little bit of lag here, but I know that the second he turns, he's ready to fire his gun, so as soon as he does that, that's my cue to start adjusting my speed. You'll note that my two rear gun turrets have been permanently knocked out. Another little bit of lag there, but I've started to slow, and he brackets me and most of the shots land short. Speed up again, and continue to put fire down on him. And every time he turns, like that, I started dropping the speed down so his shots are going to miss. And this process continues for quite some time, both of us manoeuvring furiously in order to minimise the chance that either one of us is going to land a successful hit on target. And it was really, really frustrating. He's not missing me by much though, is he? I mean, he knew how to shoot, and it was only not so much my course, but my speed changes that kept me in the game for as long as it did, as did his. And then well, I don't want to say lucky, because his shooting was very, very good, but then he landed a good hit on me, and suddenly I didn't just have my two rear gun turrets knocked out, I had both of my forward gun turrets knocked out as well, and that's a really, really bad situation to be in, so I'm forced to break off the attack. Any second now he's going to fire. Here it comes. This is the salvo that almost ended me. And boom, there you go. Now I have no guns. So I have to get out of here. Remember, I have just been firing my guns, which has extended the range at which he's going to see me by 4 kilometers, and that effect continues for up to 20 seconds after you cease firing. And now he can't see me. That's how long it took. In fact, it takes so long that my guns had actually repaired themselves without having to use the damage control ability. And they're now ready to start firing again. But I don't want to start firing just yet. I want to try to see if I can find that sweet spot in the range, and that's not it. 10.5 kilometers away, and he still sees me when I pull the trigger on these guns. And it's not until I reach a range of 11.3 kilometers from him, thanks to this 5% camo bonus, and he hits me anyway. The lucky sod. I swear, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. But you'll note that it wasn't until I reached a range of 11.3 kilometers that I stopped being detected by this guy. And that's because of the camo bonus that this camouflage pattern gives me, that 5%. 11.3 kilometers with this camouflage pattern, and you can fire without being detected, but your guns have a 12-kilometer range. So, yeah, you do the math. It gives you a 700-meter window of opportunity in which to fire the guns without being detected by the target, and it's difficult to maintain that kind of range because you're both moving at different speeds and in different directions. So, 11.3 kilometers. Let's see if we can do it. He can't see me. Well, at the moment, I can close to about 7.5 kilometers, and he's not going to see me. But the second I start firing, that number is going to shoot up to 11.3 kilometers again. And here we go. He's about to be within range. And at 11.8 kilometers, I fire my first 3 shots. He does not see me. But my shots miss. I fire again at a range of 11.3 kilometers, and I'm not sure if he saw me fire, but bang, there you go, detected. Doesn't matter though, because these shots hit the target, and he only had 150 health, and I finally send him to the bottom. Delta Leader, if you're watching this replay, well played. It was a pleasure to lose against you. I like this ship, but I haven't had many wins in it. I've had exactly 1 win in it, and I sucked. It's always the case though, isn't it? You're trying to get that daily double, you're trying to get a decent game in your favourite ship, and every match you do well in, your team sucks. And you end up with 1500 experience on a defeat. And the one game where you just totally crap out and end up being the first one sunk is the game that your team manages to win without you. So yeah, I've had that a lot in the Błyskawica. Nothing wrong with the ship, of course, it's just the roll of the dice and the team selection. This was an amusing match. Didn't win it, of course. Of course we didn't win it. I did well. I mean, the match started off pretty well. In fact, the match started off very, very well indeed. And then, as soon as I died, everything just seemed to go to rat shit. What are you going to do? Multiplayer online gaming. It is what it is. Anyway, my initial plan at the start of this match was to use the blistering speed of the Błyskawica to do a spot of area denial. Bearing in mind that I'm using the Sierra Mike signal flag, which increases the maximum speed of the ship by 5%. So I'm easily able to approach 41 knots, providing this thing's going in a straight line. Bitter experience has taught me that I am always going to be detected by enemy destroyers before I see them. In fact, usually I only see an enemy destroyer when he starts firing at me, so I don't want to get too close to that corner up there. Instead, what I'm going to do, because my torpedoes have an 8-kilometer range, is I'm going to fire some torpedoes while making absolutely sure that I'm not going to hit any friendlies, which isn't going to be a problem because I'm so much faster than everybody else. But I'm going to pop some torpedoes down this channel. Widespread too much at that sort of range, and narrow spread will do. And my torpedoes are going to have around about 500 meters to a kilometer's worth of running time left when they crest the corner of that headland down the other end of the channel. So if anybody comes around the corner, you never know, it's happened before, they'll take a hit. At the very least, they may see the torpedoes in the water, think, whoa, hidden destroyer down there, and they'll think twice about coming down that channel. Meanwhile, I'm taking Billy Big steps in the other direction. And this is where things got very, very amusing. It's been a long time since this happened to me in a game of World of Warships, and it's never happened when I've been in a destroyer firing high explosive shells at a cruiser. And in fact, I defy anybody to to name a similar occasion. That is an Omaha. Shots out, and then start manoeuvring, because I do anticipate... Oh, I didn't get detected. Good stuff. And I... What? You what? Yep, that's it. First blood. Sank him. Detonated his magazine. Penetrated his armour with high explosive shells. And basically ammo racked him. Hoorah! That has got to be the luckiest shot ever. I mean, you see people do it in battleships when they get multiple citadel penetrations, but that wasn't a citadel penetration, that was the magazine of one of his gun turrets. It's not that funny. Well, it's not for him. Okay, alright, Jingles, get serious. You've got a game of World of Warships to play. Alright. But look on the bright side. After suffering a magazine detonation like that, the game gives you a signal flag, or a couple of signal flags, which mean that when you're flying that signal flag in the next game that you play, you cannot have your magazine detonated. So, you know, it's not all bad news for him. Oh look, a big fat stupid battleship. My favourite kind of target. And by some miracle I have not yet been detected. So let's see if we can set him on fire. Paying careful attention, however, because an enemy destroyer was spotted down there. Oh wait, no, he's been sunk. Oh, that's fine, no problem. There's a lot of enemy ships up here though, and I'm going to start to get spotted when I start firing. And I've been detected. Who saw me? Who saw me? I got spotted before I fired. There's got to be a destroyer around here somewhere. Where is he? Where is he? He's got to be here somewhere. Come on. I know you're out there. Has he just popped up on the map? I'm not really paying attention to the map. I'm shooting up this battleship. There he is. How the hell did he see me? Okay. Friendly destroyer up ahead has just got his torpedoes away. I'm not hanging around. I'm getting the heck out of here. There are too many destroyers and cruisers around here for my liking. And I've broken line of sight, so I'm no longer detected by anything. But watch this. Watch the detection mechanics at work once again. I've been spotted. Who saw me? It's not the Pensacola. He's 15 kilometers away. The New York saw me, even though he was 10.3 kilometers away, and I hadn't fired the guns. Because it had been less than 20 seconds since I last fired the guns, I still had that 11.3 kilometer detection range around the ship. So as soon as I sailed back into line of sight, even though I was outside the 7.7 kilometer detection range and I hadn't fired the guns too recently, I still got spotted because it had been less than 20 seconds since the gun barrels were last used. And I need to get out of here because that's just far too much firepower. So I engage the engine boost and I motor the hell out of there. One more salvo fired at that battleship, but now everybody's in excess of 12 kilometers away from me. None of them can see me, even though I have just fired the guns. There's an awful lot of enemy aircraft over there, so I believe I might know the direction in which I'm going to find the enemy aircraft carriers. I don't want to circle back around into that big old mess of battleships and cruisers because they're going to be waiting for me. So I'm going to disengage and I'm going to go and see if I can hunt an aircraft carrier or two. Enemy Pensacola popped up at a range of 10.4 kilometers. I cannot fire at these guys or I will be detected. However, I can fire torpedoes without extending the range at which I'll be spotted. The only problem is the torpedoes have an 8 kilometer range and I have a 7.7 kilometer surface detection range. So even if that guy's AFK, and I think he is, his ship will still spot me if I cross over that magical line. Luckily, because I have this camo pattern on the ship which reduces the detectability of the ship by 3%, I do stray to within 7.7 kilometers, but he does not see me. It's the camo pattern that allowed me to, well, it gave me a little bit more margin for error in getting those torpedoes away without being detected. No carriers spotted yet, but there is an Auber-class cruiser over there, and those things are pretty nasty. Now there's a New York following me. And I know that I'm going to be spotted as soon as I fire here because he's well within range, but he's just too juicy a target to miss. Keep an eye on the Auber, see if he is paying attention to me over here. The New York, obviously he's seen me, he's turning broadside on in order to attempt to get all of his guns firing at me, which just makes him easier to hit. So, you know, thanks for that. And now I can't shoot at the New York anymore, so oh, there go the torpedoes. Yep. Two of them hit the Pensacola. Hooray. So, anyway, oh, and there's the Independence. There's one of the carriers. Okay. I'm pretty sure this Pensacola was just AFK for one reason or another. I don't actually think he was that bad. He just wasn't at the keyboard. So I'll ninja the kill here, no problem. He's burning and he's taken on water, so he has to be AFK. He didn't use his damage control ability. He just sat there and burned and flooded to death. So hooray! 2 kills. Now things started to get interesting. We've spotted both of the carriers. But it's not the carriers that are going to kill us. Well, it's not the carriers that are going to kill me. They might kill that Königsberg-class cruiser up in front. If the battleships and cruisers shooting at him don't get him first, he's losing an awful lot of health. That Auber, he's going to be my biggest problem. And the dive bombers from the carriers, if we can't sink them before this Königsberg runs out of health. And he's not going to last much longer. I've taken a hit, moderate damage, yeah, easy. But it's deceptive when you're in a destroyer. You look at your health bar and you think, yeah, it's almost full. But you only have 15,000 health. So it doesn't mean that you've got health that you can use as a damage sponge. You have to nurse your health when you're in one of these things. I start shooting at the Independence. I'm firing high explosive because that's what you do against aircraft carriers. Oop, torpedoes in the water. There'll be air-launched torpedoes from these carriers. The HE just isn't doing the job, is it? I'm trying to set him on fire, obviously, to reduce the amount of aircraft in the air and put his by putting his flight deck out of commission, but it's just not getting the job done. And then the Königsberg goes down, and I'm next, so I switch to the armor piercing. I need to do as much damage to this guy as possible. I've been hit, I'm on fire. I use my damage control ability, extinguish the fire, because when you're burning, it also extends the range at which you're going to be detected. And I'm going to try and get some armor piercing shells to do as much proper damage as I possibly can against this Independence, and I do score a couple of decent hits. But I can't hang around here. There's a New York coming in, putting himself between me and the carrier. So back to high explosive, and I start peppering the New York. Now, I'm not completely alone up here. There is another destroyer, now that the Königsberg-class cruiser is dead. And it's one of the new Soviet destroyers. It's the Gnevny, the Soviet Tier 5. And he's been hanging around slightly further away than I have. Oh crap, I've run into the map border. No, this is bad. This is very bad. You run into the map border, it reduces your engine power by 75%, so I need to get the hell out of here. What I'm not doing, however, is paying attention to that Alba. I'm focusing, I'm tunnel visioning in on this New York in an attempt to get some torpedoes away. Now, these torpedoes only have a speed of 57 knots, and the New York is a pretty manoeuvrable battleship, so in order for any of these torpedoes to hit that guy, he's going to have to be very, very predictable. Unfortunately, speaking of torpedoes, this is what finishes me. I managed to avoid all of the torpedoes dropped by the aircraft carrier, but it means that I'm now very, very slow, and there's an Alba-class cruiser on almost full health shooting at me. My damage control ability, I try to get my engine back up, I fire, I hit the Alba, I set them on fire, but I just don't have enough health left. And I'm done. But, hooray for predictable battleship drivers! And there's the It's Just a Flesh Wound award for killing somebody after your ship has been sunk. And it's probably not going to come as a great surprise to anybody to learn that, well, as soon as I died, we lost that game. Look at that. 1400 experience on a defeat. But hey, at least I got a mission completed, which is nice. My team managed to score 6 hull kills during the entire course of that battle. And I got 3 of them, so... yeah. Although, you know, shout out to one of the Independence class aircraft carriers on our team. He did do a very, very good job. The rest of the team, not so much. There were some good players on the enemy team, though, so well done to them. They deserved the win. And that, boys and girls, is the Błyskawica Premium Tier 7 Polish destroyer, the first of its kind to be introduced into World of Warships. I do not know when it's going to be available for mere mortals to purchase, but judging by the fact that the EU community contributors have been allowed to get our hands on it in order to test it out and put videos up and do live streams in it, I'm guessing that it's probably going to be pretty soon. But you don't have to wait, or at least one of you doesn't, because I've also been given one of them to give away. All you have to do is click the link in the video description. That's the part that's underneath the video that you're watching, for all those of you who couldn't understand what in the video description meant the last time I did one of these giveaways. And failing that, you can always check out my Facebook page. Again, that is always linked in the video description. I'm running a giveaway. I'll give it a couple of days, and then I will pick a winner at random, and you'll get one of these ships completely free of charge. I do have to apologise though, because I'm a little unsure as exactly who is going to be eligible to win the giveaway. And what I mean by that, and this is entirely my own fault, it's nothing to do with Wargaming, it's purely and simply because I neglected to ask Wargaming exactly who on which servers were going to be able to win one of these ships until I started doing this video, and they obviously haven't gotten back to me yet with the answer, but it's likely to be North American and EU servers only. I'm sorry, Southeast Asian server players, but well, your server just tends to do its own thing. Have a go anyway. You can't lose anything by entering, and you never know, you might be lucky, and perhaps your server is in fact going to be eligible, but it is very likely to be North American, and it is definitely EU server who are eligible to win this fantastic little destroyer in this giveaway, which Wargaming have very kindly allowed me to do. So have a go, you never know your luck, and best of luck to everybody who takes part. And that's it for today, and in fact that's it for this week. The next video I upload will be Mingles with Jingles on Monday, and between now and then, on Sunday, I'm going to Brighton Film and Comic Con. I've got autograph signings booked with Renee Aubergenois, who played Constable Odo in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Leah Cairns, who was in Kyle XY, the first season of Fargo, and played Raptor Pilot Racetrack in Battlestar Galactica, Carl Weathers, that's right, Apollo Creed, the man himself, also Dylan from Predator, he's also going to be there, Colin Baker, one of the Doctor Who actors, James Masters, who played Spike, the vampire from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And considerably more exciting for me personally is the opportunity to meet and shake the hand of John Wagner, who is the writer who, along with Spanish artist Carlos Ezquerra, invented Judge Dredd. So, woohoo! That's what I'm getting up to this weekend. And on Remembrance Sunday as well. So, yes, that's it for today. As always, folks, take care, and I'll catch you next time.